Welcome to Voice of Aroha on Wellington Access Radio 106.1 FM. I'll be your host today. My name is Ben. I'm here with Rem. Hello, Rem.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And we have a wonderful guest with us today. So we have Carolina Millar, who is a registered child educational psychologist with over 20 years of experience working here in refugee and migrant sector, both in Aotearoa New Zealand and overseas. Throughout her career, Carolina has supported educational journey with students and families from refugee and migrant backgrounds with clear focus on building strong relationship with key stakeholders such as schools, NGOs, and other government agencies. Carolina is passionate about providing trauma-informed and evidence-based, culturally responsive care. And it's a privilege to have Caroline with us. Caroline, welcome.
Carolina.
Beg your pardon.
So good.
Carolina, welcome.
Thank you, Ben.
It's good to have you in the studio, and thank you for joining us here in the studio. For those who are not familiar with your work, and if you can give us a brief introduction to yourself, and just talk about your journey to here in New Zealand.
Kia ora, Ben. Thank you for inviting me today. I've been in New Zealand for nearly 20 years. I arrived here, migrated to New Zealand in 2004. Unplanned. I just came on holidays and met my husband while I was on holidays here. So I've been very privileged to be involved with the refugee and migrant community in various roles in my life before coming to New Zealand and since I arrived here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your journey. How have you found, when you first arrived in New Zealand as a new immigrant here in New Zealand? How was settling here like?
Look, it's a big difference. So I am originally from Colombia.
Yes.
And before coming here, I was living in London.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, even though cultures are a little bit similar, coming here was just, one, because of the distance, feeling a bit far away from home.
Yes.
But two, is kind of like restarting again. So I lived in the UK for about 3 years, and coming here was, I felt really welcome.
Yes.
I felt Kiwis are very open to know about different cultures and understanding a little bit more where you're from. But obviously, like any journey, migrant, refugee, we have up and downs, So sometimes some challenges have come along the way, but for most of these nearly 20 years, it's been really good. I call New Zealand home. I think I'm a Colombian, actually. I feel this is home as much as Colombia is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was because you mentioned that you were in England before you came here, right? So I would assume that you already know English by then when you came here?
Well, I went to England to learn English, but obviously when you come here, I had my kind of life as a student over there. Here was more like working life. So that comes with big challenges too. Just getting used to the language here as well, because the accent is different and the way how things are done and the working environment and everything was different. So it was still a big.
What would you say is one of your most challenging times, or some of the big challenges that you face when you settle here?
I think feeling far away was one of the things.
Yeah.
Because home is always home.
Yes.
So when things, when you need to be there for X, Y reason, feeling away is quite hard. And I guess when I was living in Colombia, before I moved to the UK and then New Zealand, I did comms, I did journalism and communication. So my biggest strength was my writing.
Oh,
Yes.
right. Yeah.
And then when you have to work in a different language and you have to learn a different language, that becomes your weakness.
Yes.
So I think that was one of the biggest challenges, just having to start all over again. You know, in your own language, you have a style of writing. You
Yes.
have, even reading literature and all that. It just is gone. Like when you learn a new language, that's a massive challenge. Something that you really enjoy is kind of taken away when you're learning, when you're starting from zero. So I think that was one of the losing my identity in a way because you don't have that strength with you.
Yeah.
So you have to build it up, and it takes time. So I'd say one of the biggest challenges as well. Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, I grew up in London, and I think even coming here was actually quite a different pace of life, and you know what you said about being welcomed is actually quite different. Even that experience is actually different. But when you add the language aspect of it, that's it shapes your thinking and how you're actually brought up, and it's. I mean, I can't even imagine because most migrants have actually speak more than one language, and the way they actually taught in education is actually different. So what were the drives for you, and what was the motivation in moving into the space which you have for educational and psychology?
So my journey here, because I was bilingual, I started working with as an interpreter.
Right.
So I did a lot of interpreting for counselors, psychologists, doctors, court, lawyers, police. And I felt that one of the areas that is really, really hard to be able to convey a message and actually get the support that you need as your emotional side of things. When you receive counseling or when you receive any type of support or therapy, not being able to do it in your own language is really hard.
Yes.
So when I was interpreting, I could see that having that extra person in the room changed the experience completely. And that's how I started thinking it would be really good to be able to offer this line of work in English, but also in Spanish. And, just be able to just for families, for kids to access this and get someone to understand exactly how they were feeling rather than having a third person there to communicate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It must be quite a privilege. I mean, sometimes what you said about how you've learned from journalism and your style of writing and as well as thinking, and being able to sort of revisit and reuse it in a care environment where you're actually helping other people must be quite fulfilling.
It is. Some of the ways how we try to capture the family story in our work is through narrative therapy. So you use some of those principles,
Yes.
but in a different way. It's not to capture an audience, or it's not to sell something. It's more to get the voice and get the heart and get exactly what the message that families or kids need you to convey to other people, so they can get the support they need. Yeah.
And it's quite hard. I mean, there's a distinction between someone translating and someone interpreting. And especially in a care environment, that actually becomes quite important in terms of what's actually being conveyed and the level of care which you actually get. Is that what's motivated you into the evidence-based care environment? I know you do the child psychology as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really important understanding in psychology we talk about the underneath the iceberg. So we talk about the underlying needs to a behavior. So behavior is a way of communicating something. So understanding what are those drivers, what is underneath action or a behavior or a feeling. I think it's really important, and a lot of the times conveying that message in your own language is what you need really to get there. So I think it is a plus. I mean, obviously we have a lot of amazing practitioners out there, but I think when you add the language component and understanding the culture and understanding a journey, because not all journeys are the same, and for someone that has never migrated, trying to understand someone that has gone through stressors and a really difficult journey, either as a migrant or a refugee, it's really hard. Because you may have an amazing practitioner, but if they've never been there, it's really hard to talk about empathy or to talk about just really relating to how the person feels. So I think there's just some things that it's good to be able to relate to with clients. Yeah,
definitely. Like different people have different experience and different perspective. And in saying that, like you also mentioned like how you feel welcomed in New Zealand. Like what does that look like to you? Like what makes you feel welcomed?
I think I remember coming to New Zealand the first time. That lovely smile, the warmth, that I have to say that I didn't get in the UK. It was quite scary.
Absolutely.
Going through customs in the UK or anywhere in Europe was really scary. And here was just the kia ora, a big smile, relaxed, laid back. I think that's just, it was amazing. It was my first kind of, whoa, this is different. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's like the same with me as well, because like I came originally from Burma, and just seeing here like this big smile, like when people like talk as well, like they look at you in the eye and it actually talks to you and address you, and that like it's something really different, because in our culture, like cultural differences wise, when we're talking to someone older than us, you're not supposed to have direct eye contact. You're supposed to kind of just, look at their way, but not exactly in their eyes, because it's kind of like challenging authority sort of thing. Like it's really amazing, the culture here. In saying that, it actually leads to our next question, which is, what do you see people doing that enhances like multiculturalism and social cohesion and like inclusion here in New Zealand?
I think, it's still work in progress.
Yes.
But I think people are more open these days to understand cultures that is not just, this is exotic, or, they chit-chat at the start, but it's actually understanding more of the journeys and the challenges as well. That is not easy. We've gone through a lot of difficult times in New Zealand, with specific communities. So I think as hard it has been, I think it has helped for some of those sectors of the society that haven't had the exposure to other cultures to actually think that we are actually not only bicultural but also multicultural. So I think we've seen a lot of opportunities for different minority groups in all sectors of society, and I think that's very encouraging. Because that will make a lot of Pakeha exposed to different ways of doing things, and that's how it's amazing, because that's how we grow, just by just sharing with people that are different to us and understanding how things are done in your country and how you're doing here. And you were saying, you're from Burma, but I'm guessing you came here when you were young.
Yes.
So understanding how was that journey for your parents and for yourself, and that's part of the work that I do, just trying to, for example, in schools, to try to get teachers and to understand that for a young person, it's not that easy to be in between two cultures. And some of the behaviors could be because of pressure that are happening from home or pressure that are happening in a school that parents don't really understand. And so it's, any exposure to help everyone understand what the other is experiencing and living is what can help us, to be way more inclusive.
I love that. I think your approach I think it's actually from different aspects of it and different facets of it. So the multicultural side, also the empathic, but also understanding the complexities and the shared journey, which I think a lot of people actually overlook that, and it's mostly overlooked. And people tend to be put in the same pigeonhole at the same time. You get a label which is actually identifying you as one of the, everyone is actually going through a journey under refugee or or migrant labels, or something like that, which is hard. So I think and thank you for the work you do. I really, I just want to say that, and I hope you actually get to see more people like you approaching and serving the community in their own way, which is actually enhancing. So thank you for the work you do. But just looking at staying in that realm, what is it that New Zealand, in terms of patient, can I use the word patient or client care or
clients or
I don't want to make it sound very
clinical.
Yes. I want it to be, because we're people, and there's we have different needs and the, like you say, individuality, which is sometimes can be stripped. And what is New Zealand? Where does it stand in terms of other countries from your experience, or something which can actually improve in this relation? The different approaches, is it working as for people who are actually migrant and refugees and different backgrounds?
Do you mean in the schooling or in the education kind of?
Education, psychology.
Well, it's obviously I'm not an expert on what happens in other countries. What I've seen is there is way more research happening overseas than what happens here with the needs of young people in schools. There is a big gap in what happens in New Zealand for refugee and migrant students. What you mentioned before, the label doesn't help, because the label makes things to be kind of like a token, I tick the box of, understand a little bit about the refugee experience, so I'm informed and I know how to do it. When in reality, we're individuals. We come from cultures. We need to take the time to understand each person as a unique being.
Yes.
That comes from a specific culture, that comes from a specific family, that by coming here, each experience is different. Some people will come from a culture, the same culture and others, but their journey was different. Their resettlement was different. Their work experiences are different. Yeah. So, I think we need to take time, and we need to have a slow pace of really caring and understanding one another. And that's why also we need more research in areas where we can actually do the stuff that it hasn't been done and is needed there for young people especially. We see big rates of kids dropping out of school, not finishing school, anxiety, depression. We're seeing, all this quite prevalent in former refugees and migrants. Because there is a lack of sense of belonging. So how can we, help the society to understand for these kids to feel more welcome in the schools and in the society, and feel that they are a value member of society, and not just simply, they're here, they should be pleased because they have the ability that they were before. It's not that simple. It's actually every single person can make someone feel more welcome and more included. And so I think it's just seeing each student and parent community as rich as and interesting, and taking your time to get to know each person rather than putting labels.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. In saying that, like, you know, how you were mentioning having someone feel more included and things like that, what do you think, like, our listeners at home or people listening to us from anywhere, how would they, what can they do to make someone feel more welcomed?
I think it's each person's responsibility to learn more about different cultures, but it's also our responsibility by being part of communities to get the message out there, you know, just to talk more about where we come from. It's nothing to be, you know, shy of or embarrassed about. It's just so important to just put yourself out there. I've seen in schools that a lot of kids prefer to stay quiet and don't talk about their cultures because there is this fear of being laughed at or being discriminated. But actually, we need to just talk and be proud of where we come from. It's really hard for the society to expect to do all the work. So we have to start by being really proud of where we come from, and just don't be worried about accents. Accents are beautiful, you know. Behind every accent there is a story, and just getting underneath all that. You get, like always, you get people that may be a little bit more closed off, but that's okay, you know. Just carry on and be you, the one that makes everything inclusive. You know, you doing your part is really important.
If just staying in that space, I think of encouraging parents and those from migrants, former refugee background, encouraging some of the stigmas around education, and especially when it comes to special needs, parents tend to not like talking about it or try to hide it, say, especially for high complex needs like autism or ADHD or something like that. Do you have encouraging words or something which they can actually use, especially in an educational setting, talking to schools or just being open about it?
I think it's very important for parents to be to use a lot of compassion with themselves as parents. There is nothing they've done wrong. For a child to be ADHD or for a child to be autistic or any other, you know, it could be dyslexia, it could be just any learning difficulty. It's nothing to be afraid of, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's really important to have compassion with yourself, your child, but also to keep being an advocate. If you don't talk about it, you won't be able to get the support you need. So what I've seen in my work with neurodiverse in schools as the biggest advocates are the parents. And this is a big challenge that we have with refugee and migrant communities. They don't understand the system. It's a really hard system to understand how to navigate, you know, the health system and the education system. So it is important to understand your role and the advocacy that you have to do to be able to get the support your children need. There is a lot of organization that can help. So if you stay quiet and you stay embarrassed about your child needed something, you're never going to get the support. You're never going to get the help. So I say just embrace it. We are all unique. We all have things that are hard, you know, when we're kids, when we're older. So it is embracing that and just speak up for support so we can get that, what the kids need.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing such great advice and just hearing your journey coming to New Zealand. And yeah, thank you so much for coming here for this korero. Unfortunately, we're near the ending of our time.
I was enjoying that so much.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
It was so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolina. We really appreciate your what you do for the community, and it's really important. And I could go on for another hour. Just,
I need time. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, so thank you for our listeners, and thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for
hope to see you
having me.
again. Yeah,
I'd love to come back. Thank you.